This is the 10-Minute Contrarian Podcast. This is VP. We're a solutions-based podcast, diving into the world of contrarian investing and alternative finance. You can find us hosted on the No Nonsense Forex YouTube channel, NoNonsenseForex.com, and podcast players everywhere. Episode 218 is brought to us by Bybit. Bybit's World Series of Trading, the largest trading competition in all of the world, is jumping off in about 4 days here. And even if trading competitions are not your thing, Bybit should be your thing. This is not the only thing they do. They do so much for their active traders, and they have everything you would ever want. Nobody gives you more options, and nobody gives you more simply by being part of their ecosystem. But you will get even more if you sign up through my affiliate link, which you can find in the Bybit blog down below in the show notes. Click it, read the blog, see if Bybit is for you, and if it is, go all the way down to the bottom of that blog and click my affiliate link and get yourself started. Unfortunately, this does not apply to American citizens. I do have an option for you down below as well. But for the rest of you, get yourself started because with Bybit, membership has its rewards. It is the 10-Minute Contrarian Podcast, and today we are doing something I haven't done in a very long time, and that is a user-submitted topic, and not one particular listener. This is something that this is a question I've gotten in the comments section on YouTube and via email probably 5-6 times minimum. And I always said, okay, I will create an episode for this. And then I got the question a couple more times after that. I'm like, okay, I think it's time to finally do this episode, especially because the episode I've been teasing all this month, which is going to be my exact portfolio allocation, not exact, but the exact way I structure my portfolio is going to be next week's episode, barring something completely crazy. And I think this episode is a perfect transition into it. And this is an episode that directly affects some people. And even if it doesn't affect you now, it could later, and it's a legitimate concern. If it ever happens to you, you're going to want to know what to do. So what I always try to do on this, this evergreen podcast is create episodes you can always go back to should you need the help or advice. And oh, by the way, I guess while we're here this early in the podcast, I want everybody to stay till the end of this podcast episode because I'm about to reveal what is probably a very uncomfortable truth for the majority of you. I don't know my audience personally, but one thing I like to do often is play the odds, and I'm pretty sure I am going to be right about this particular scarlet letter I'm about to put on the majority of you. But again, that's okay. We're here to help. So the main conundrum we are trying to solve here in episode 218 is what happens when one particular asset makes up a very uncomfortable amount of your overall net worth. How do you handle this? And if this has not happened to you already, as a contrarian investor who believes in asymmetrical upside, unless you just like to listen to podcasts like this and you sit around and do nothing and you're afraid to invest, you're probably going to invest in a number of these things. And as is always going to be the case, one or possibly many more of them are going to treat you extremely well. And you are going to be extremely early to them. And God forbid one of them just even goes far beyond your wildest dreams and ends up performing extremely well, like off the charts well. But now that one thing you don't really ever want to sell, ends up becoming like 80, 85, 90, 95% of your overall net worth. Sometimes the one thing that was meant to solve a lot of life's problems has now become a problem in itself. And okay, this is a luxury problem. This is a first world problem. I hate when people say that because problems are still problems and they need to be dealt with. Whether that problem is putting food on the table or deciding what to do with all of this money. Sure, luxury problem. Fine. Still a problem. Still something that needs to be addressed. So let us first address the problem side and then move on to the solution side. And then as promised, I'll give you that big payoff towards the end of the episode here. And just know there's going to be a decent amount of psychology in this episode, but those of you who know me and my material, this is an area I actually specialize in, especially as it pertains to finance, and just money overall, which I guess is the definition of finance. Anyway, step one in this equation, should this quote problem ever happen to you, is to eliminate any type of guilt. It's not your fault that, God forbid, you invested in something and it did really, really well. I mean, it is your fault, but it's to your credit, and you should not feel bad about it. This one, it almost seems kind of obvious, but I want to get it out of the way first because I think this is a real feeling some people have. This type of imposter syndrome where they feel like this should not be happening to them. Now, whether you relate to what I just said or whether you think what I just said is completely absurd, this does affect some people. And this is a psychological weight which can really hinder decision-making in the future. So I want to address it now. Get rid of it. It can do you absolutely no favors. It is natural to feel guilty about success, but don't ever. Celebrate it. You don't need to rub it in people's faces. When it comes to how much money you make, it's probably in your best interest not to. But I'm telling you, never feel bad for your successes. Life is full of small and large failures that come way more often than we want them to. So when you get those moments of success, you embrace them. I mean, how nihilistic would you have to be to have all these failures happen to you and have you embrace those failures, but then a little bit of success actually comes your way and you choose not to embrace it? Contrarians, I have had 8 failed business ideas. I have blown my trading account out all the way to zero 3 times. I'm a professional trader. I take losses all the time. I waited tables for 20 years. I have eaten my share of shit and will continue to do so. But on the other side of things, if we just take the broadcasting aspect of it and nothing more, in terms of listenership on the podcast side and subscribership on the YouTube side, I ran the numbers, and I currently have a top 1% YouTube channel and 2 top 1% podcasts. Why? Because I work hard and I'm talented. Fuck you. Never apologize for your successes. You earned them, whether you feel like you did or not. But now that that's out of the way, the problem still remains. You have an uncomfortable percentage of one thing, most likely, or maybe one asset class overall in your portfolio. And that is a reasonable thing to be uncomfortable with, because if you're doing things right, you should be well diversified. And having one thing or one asset class be 85, 90, 95% of your overall portfolio is not being diversified. But the problem is you don't ever want to sell that one thing that is taking up all that space. And rest assured, my solution is not to tell you that you need to sell that one thing. But we'll get to the solutions in a minute. I want to give a little bit of additional color to this whole dilemma by talking about a guy I know who is also in a Telegram group that I'm a part of. And within this Telegram channel, there is a sub-channel for investing talk. And he and I used to go back and forth a lot until I finally realized that there is no talking any sense into this guy at all. He is very smart, but he thinks he knows a lot more than he does. And if you ever call him out on it, he will use the whole experience thing, which is one of my least favorite arguments. Like, I have 25 years of investing experience. That doesn't mean you were good at it. And normally when somebody uses that argument, they are using it in the place of actual skill and actual success rate. I'm sure those of you in the workplace know at least one person who does things like this all the time. They're terrible at their job, but they've learned how to be just bad enough to where they don't get fired. And now anytime you want to argue with them, they throw the experience thing in your face. That's this guy. And he argues like a chick overall. So I'm just like, okay, this is not worth my time. It's going to drive me crazy. But his big problem is he is an Ethereum maxi. and he got in very early. Now, I'll talk about the obvious fallacies with maxi thinking in a moment. If I haven't done that already, that's one of my favorite things to do is go after maxis on this podcast. It's so fun. But you could tell that this guy's overall happiness became almost completely dependent on whether the price of Ethereum was moving up or down. And the price moves in Ethereum historically have been extreme. Now he, unlike some maxis, was willing to spend some of his Ethereum on some lifestyle things. He had actually gone down to Mexico and got ready to buy a really nice house on the Pacific coast back when ETH was pumping heavily. But then it was a good thing he didn't buy that home because ETH dropped hard soon after that, and his net worth went down with it. Hard. And I admit, man, that's pretty brutal. You know, somebody who has a high net worth, which he did at a time, he does now again, I hope, but this was years ago, you know, you should be able to buy something nice without too much worry. Because if you're doing it right, you should be able to buy something and then still be high net worth. But because of the fluctuations of the one thing that was making up the vast, vast majority of his portfolio, he should have had this luxury, but he didn't. And I'm telling you, psychologically, that's just such a rough place to be. You know, the main theme of this is you can do well in the financial space and still end up kind of miserable through no real fault of your own. You know, and this is not the life I want for you, but through the ideas that we have on this podcast and the things we execute positions on, there's a good chance this is going to happen to you. So let's attack this. Now, before we get into the solutions, I guess this would be one solution, but just understand that unfortunately, there's not one thing out there that is completely foolproof. Despite what the maxis in the space might say, whether it's Bitcoin maxis or gold bugs, AI enthusiasts, it doesn't matter. You know, we on the show have adopted a word, and when I say adopted a word, I've just taken a word that I didn't use a whole lot before that I overuse now, and that word is inevitable. You know, we try to find things in this world which are inevitable. And we start there. And then from there, we drill down deeper to find great things to invest in. But here's the problem about things that we feel like are inevitable. One, they might not actually be. We could always be wrong. Now, we're not wrong very often on this show, thankfully. But we have been in the past, and we certainly can be in the future. So even if the probabilities are super high, having most of your net worth tied up in one thing is extremely irresponsible. And some of these maxis are going to be right, and they're going to rub it in your face, and that's fine. At the end of the day, that doesn't really affect us. Spoiler alert on top of that, if Bitcoin goes to 1 million or 5 million or 10 million, so are a lot of other things we invest in here. So, you know, we're going to be fine. But I mean, everything has flaws. Bitcoin, we know, we've talked about it. There is always the looming threat of quantum computing. Even though things are good right now, there could still be a lot of government overreach coming in the future, especially if this thing becomes really, really big, you know, way bigger than it is now, and it becomes a problem. It's like, yeah, man, get ready for that world. And, you know, just this past week, I think it was this past week, we had an issue where just by pure luck, maybe like 2 of the miners ended up with like 51% of the overall hash rate, which is exactly the situation Bitcoin tries to avoid by having so many nodes. And it was a total long shot, but it still happened. You know, let's take something even more stable like gold. You know, I don't see too much downside for gold, but somebody who is way wealthier and smarter than me, Rick Rule, this week said that we could easily see a 50% drop in the price of gold in the near future. These things are possible. And if it makes up the majority of your net worth, you know, what's that going to do to you? Psychologically and financially. Let's take it away from dollar hedges. Let's go to something like rare earths, which we've talked about recently. Pretty inevitable. The future's going to need a lot of it, and there's not a lot of it. But the problem with rare earths is you can't just go and invest in the neodymium index. To my knowledge, that does not exist. You have to go invest in actual companies. And anybody who's invested in mining companies knows just how volatile and unpredictable these companies can be sometimes. I mean, anything can happen with mining companies. The risk is very real, even if the underlying asset is an absolute inevitability. So I suppose that would be solution number one. Be aware and understand that there is no one perfect asset. And I guess, step 1A, and I don't think this applies to any of you because I've probably pissed off all the maxis who ever dared to listen to this podcast, but step 1A is don't be a maxi. You can be a believer. You can be a strong believer. Just don't be a maxi. This is a defective way of thinking. It is 100% okay to believe in something and to believe in something strongly. We all have strong belief systems. I do. But the problem arises when you become an absolutist on something, like these maxis have done, like my guy did on the Discord forum with Ethereum, like you see with religious fanaticism. There is always, 100% of the time, a lack of financial understanding or a lack of education somewhere with this extreme level of thinking. Now, most Bitcoin maxis, for example, know a lot about finance because they learned about it. But they learned about it in one ecosystem, one very, very biased and fervent ecosystem. And this limits the scope of what they actually know. But there's such a danger to themselves on top of that because what happened was they took a chance on something that was not supposed to pan out. But not only did it, but did it ever. And in a lot of cases has made them wealthier than almost everybody on Wall Street. So given all of those factors, how on earth are you ever going to tell these people they're wrong about anything when it comes to finance? They've played the game and they've won. But that doesn't mean they're right about most things. They were just dead right about one very big thing. And how does that help you and I now that Bitcoin is no longer at $5 per Bitcoin? It doesn't. And the worst part of it is emotion plays way too much of a role in this way of thinking. It just does. And I could even cut a bit deeper here. I might regret saying this in the future, but screw it. We're here. We may as well bring it up now. I've known a lot of Bitcoin maxis in my life. I'm friends with many of them. To my knowledge, all the ones that I know, with the exception of one, because I just don't know where he sits on this, they're all atheists, which is very telling. It is human nature to want to have a strong belief system that can guide your overall decision-making. You're a rudderless ship without it. And, not believing in something is a belief, but it's just not a very strong one. It's not something you can really hang your hat on at the end of the day. And I think what happened is a lot of these atheists finally found their religion. And you know what? I actually think it's good. There's a lot of people out there who believe in some really messed up things. You could do way worse than something like real, finite, immutable money for all. But the problem is the psychology and the emotion attached to what is, don't get me wrong, it absolutely a very cult-like way of thinking in a lot of cases. And I love my maxi friends. We will sit and even joke about this. They're very aware that they're in a cult, and we'll even joke about it. I'm Roman Catholic, and we'll talk about a lot of the similarities between my religion and theirs. They'll say, "Hey, we both got a white paper, don't we?" It's like, yeah, we sure do. But again, I don't want to make this episode into a debate like that. If that's what you want to comment on, if you want to go to YouTube and comment on what I just said, I think you are taking this whole thing in the wrong direction and you're not focusing on what's important. What's important here is avoiding the psychology that this particular situation can cause. And step one, like I just illustrated, was being aware of not just the issue itself, but the suboptimal way of thinking this issue can cause and how it can negatively affect your decision making in the future when it comes to finance. And I don't know about you, but I know that in my lifetime, probably sooner than later, the rough times are going to come. And up until that point, you just can't afford, pardon the pun, to make suboptimal decisions. You have to get it right. You have to get it very right so you can have enough to weather the storm. So assuming you are aware of this problem and you are already aware of the problems it causes and the suboptimal decisions it might lead to, let's move on to the solutions that are actually actionable, what you can actually do about this. My advice, and this is not official financial advice, it never is, I'm not licensed to give it, but for what it's worth, while we're here, what you can do, and what I think is a good idea, if you have something that takes up way too much of your portfolio, is let's say it's just one asset class, like crypto, because I think crypto is going to be the answer for a lot of people because that is the thing that has moved up the most in our lifetimes. Now, crypto is the thing taking up most of your portfolio, and this bothers you. I would not completely stop investing in it because there will still be really great opportunities. What I would do is start allocating the majority of your future investment capital to everything else, and that even includes cash, and allow this ratio and this percentage to even out over time. Again, it's not your fault you invested in something that went bananas. So there's no need to punish yourself for it. Just take steps in the future to even that ratio out, therefore making yourself more diversified. And by doing so, you're just going to feel better about the whole situation because over time you will become less and less over-leveraged in that one thing that has the power to take down the majority of your net worth. This is where diversification is awesome. And as long as you're building towards that, not only is it a great idea, but I think you'll feel a lot better. And if that one asset class that's taking up the majority of your portfolio is the one thing you really know, and that's really all you know, well, then this is even better because now you get to know and learn about other things. With Bitcoin maxis, a lot of them didn't know anything about finance until they got into Bitcoin, but through Bitcoin, they learned a lot. And little do they know, maybe, that they're primed to really grasp on to the awesomeness of other asset classes too. They just got to get rid of that cult-like thinking. But I personally see no downside at all in this approach. Step one, don't worry about it. It's fine. It's actually a good thing. But step two, over time, work on balancing out that overall ratio. You'll get there. And in the process, you'll learn about a lot of other really great asset classes too. And yes, you will always have a favorite. And that favorite's probably going to be crypto. You never forget your first. But you will see the beauty also in investing in other things as well and what those things can do for you. Now, my final solution is a little more extreme, but I actually think it's a really great idea if you can find a way to psychologically get yourself there. And that solution is to take that one thing making up the majority of your portfolio, in some cases the vast majority, and completely eliminate it from your net worth. Now, I don't mean sell it. I mean put it aside in its own category, thus removing it completely from your net worth. So let's say you have $5 million in Bitcoin, and removing it would only give you about $40,000 net worth. Okay, so be it. Get rid of it. Chances are, like most Bitcoiners, unless you're one of those really hardcore guys in El Salvador that are, doing the Lord's work and spending Bitcoin and keeping that ecosystem fresh and running. The majority of people I know don't want to sell their Bitcoin like ever. They would rather die with it and pass it down. So if that's the case, and you're never going to spend it, and I hate to tell you guys, we spend in fiat, always have, and probably still will for a while, then what's the point of including something you're never going to spend? I don't know if you guys have heard of being an accredited investor. To be an accredited investor, you have to have a certain net worth, but what they've done recently with this is they've eliminated your home from becoming your net worth for a couple reasons. One, a lot of homes just went up by default. That doesn't have a lot to do with your investing skill. Maybe it does, but in a lot of cases it doesn't. And two, most people, even if their home, the value of their home has gone crazy, are never going to sell it. So to whatever committee out there who decides on who's an accredited investor and who's not, they're saying, okay, that's not money you're ever going to invest, so why count it? So if you have something you're never going to sell, then it also doesn't really count either. I mean, it's great that it's there, don't get me wrong. If something really bad happens, you at least have it. But if you just want to have two separate categories, one, your actual net worth, and then two, this kind of, like the Sopranos, like this thing of ours, this thing we have over off to the side, that we don't talk about. I'm completely okay with doing it, because if you feel like a $40,000 net worth is not a lot and would cause panic, well, in your case it wouldn't, because that's not all you have. You got this thing over to the side, but now it no longer factors into the overall calculation. So what you can do now is properly focus on the rest of it. Worry about the part of your overall portfolio that's actually liquid and could be converted into other things. Now, I might sound a bit hypocritical because I have said in the past that the gold and Bitcoin that I have, I don't plan on selling any more of it because I want to see where this story goes. But don't forget, I'm also an investor, and I know when it is an appropriate time to sell, and there will be an appropriate time to do that. Not all of it, of course, but cycles are cycles, short term, medium term, and long term. And if there ever comes a time where I sell half my gold, that doesn't mean I can't just buy it right back. It doesn't mean it's gone forever. It just means I'm trying to make the best decision for the period of time I'm living in. And that's all it comes down to. So those are your solutions. I hope it makes you feel better, or at least gives you a little bit of a sense of ease on what can be a very stressful moment in somebody's life, a very unique stressful moment that was born out of absolute success. And a lot of times successful people end up in a bad place because they make bad decisions after their success, but this was not the case for you. You did nothing wrong. And this is not a type of stress that you deserve. So I want you to know that, and I want to give you some solutions to hopefully alleviate that stress over time. But if you remember at the top of the show, I said stick around. While we're on this subject, I want to go from solutions back to a major problem that I will bet, I don't know my audience personally, but I will be willing to bet that the majority of people listening to my voice right now have something that is taking up the vast majority of their overall portfolio and their overall net worth. I'll bet the majority of you have this one asset in common. And this one thing that I will bet makes up the majority, or maybe even the entirety of your portfolio, is cash. Now, you want to talk about an actual problem. This is it. And so many people do it because of the way we grew up, because of social programming, because of our desire to keep score in some of the most backwards and illogical ways. Like, so many people would rather have a high number in their bank account instead of having a high net worth, because they don't want to invest in things that go up and down a lot, because this is stressful. This creates a lot of uncertainty. So if for some reason you didn't know, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret here. The value of your cash goes up and down a lot too. And you know what's even worse? It goes mostly down. And governments all over the world have done a great job masking this little fact from you so you don't lose faith in their currency. And what a bang-up job they've done. Even my listeners, I'll bet, are still probably way over-leveraged in cash because of the way it makes you feel. Contrarians, did you not listen to my episode called Good Night and Good Luck? Do you not know what's happening to your cash every single day? It's always been happening. The only difference is long ago you didn't feel it. But you do now, don't you? And changes have to be made. And so the solution to this problem is going to be in next week's episode 219. I will show you, at the very least, what I'm doing to combat this problem and tell you how I am looking to allocate my own overall portfolio and my overall net worth. And whether your net worth is $200 or $20 million. Percentages are percentages. Good decisions are good decisions. And these are decisions everyone needs to be making. Because one of the greatest things the Bitcoin community ever did was expose to the world just what a problem fiat currency is. And I will tell you exactly what you can do about it next week. But I've talked enough. Thank you for listening to me. And understand that so many of these solutions are going to be uncomfortable. But that is probably the best thing about them. Because the worst things in life are easy. The best things in life are difficult. And that helps tell me exactly what I need to do. But even though so many people are waking up to the realities of money and finance overall, the vast, vast majority of people still have no idea. And they're the ones that are going to get hit hard the most. So it's okay. Be crazy. But just be early.